I never thought I'd end up in a situation where I'd feel like a stranger in my own home. When I married Claire, I knew she came with history, a late husband and 2 kids who hadn't fully processed his death. I understood that. I was patient. I never expected love from them, just some level of coexistence. Claire was everything I wanted: smart, beautiful, emotionally reserved but passionate when she let her guard down. I thought I could work with that. What I didn't expect was how easily I'd slip into emotional isolation. Tyler and Ava, Claire's kids, were 17 and 19 when I moved in. At first, it was civil. Tyler was quiet, kept to himself, polite but distant. Ava, on the other hand, had this sharpness in her tone, like she was always testing me, watching for cracks. I chalked it up to grief. I told myself, they'll warm up. Give it time. But time just made the silence heavier. Claire worked long hours at the hospital, 12-hour shifts, sometimes nights. I work from home, managing logistics for a retail company. I'm good at it. Organized. Precise. Alone. Most of my days were spent pacing between my office and the kitchen, while the rest of the house stayed eerily quiet. The shift started slow. A look here, a comment there. Ava started asking me questions, not about work or life, but things like what I thought about relationships with age gaps. "Do you think it's weird when someone falls for a person way older than them?" she asked one day, leaning against the counter while eating cereal in an oversized t-shirt. I didn't respond. I just gave her a look and walked away. But something about it stayed with me. Not in a flattering way, more like a warning bell. Claire and I had stopped sleeping in the same bed 3 weeks prior. Her excuse was night shifts disrupting her rhythm. She needed rest. I understood, but it still stung. Our intimacy had dried up. The last time she kissed me, really kissed me, was 2 months ago. She'd come home from work, leaned in, and then stopped midway. "I'm too tired," she said. I backed off, smiled like it didn't matter. That night, Tyler knocked on my door. He never did that. "You got a charger I can borrow?" he asked. I handed him mine. "Thanks," he said, but didn't leave. He looked around my office. "You ever think about what would have happened if you'd never met my mom?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "Just wondering. You seem like someone who doesn't get noticed much." Then he left. The comment echoed for hours. Someone who doesn't get noticed much. He wasn't wrong. Over dinner, Claire barely spoke. She scrolled through her phone, laughed at a message, then looked up at me and said, "Oh, sorry. Just work drama." I smiled, even though I could tell it wasn't work. She used to share everything with me. Now it was like I was the background noise to her actual life. Ava came in late, sat down, and started eating straight from the pot. "Don't you have plates?" I asked, half joking. She smiled. "You sound like Dad," she said. That was the first time she'd referred to him in front of me. I didn't know how to respond. She looked at me again, longer this time. Not challenging, curious. Later that night, I heard whispering outside my door. My office has thin walls. I recognized their voices, Tyler and Ava. "Just ask him," Ava said. "No, not yet," Tyler replied. "What if he tells Mom?" "He won't," Ava said, confident. "He won't risk it." "Risk what?" I leaned in, trying to hear more, but they were gone. The hallway was empty. My door creaked slightly as I opened it, but the house had already gone quiet. I didn't sleep much that night. Every little sound had me alert. The next morning, I caught Ava watching me from the hallway. When I looked her way, she didn't turn away. She smiled, then walked off like nothing happened. Claire texted around noon. "Double shift tonight. Don't wait up." I replied with a thumbs up. That was our communication now. Emojis and one-liners. Marriage, reduced to digital shrugs. Tyler came home from the gym. Shirtless, towels slung over his shoulder. "We're ordering pizza later," he said. "You in?" I nodded. Ava was already on the couch, flipping through a show I'd never seen. "You should sit with us tonight," she said. "You always eat alone." I wanted to say no, but the way she said it didn't feel like an invitation, it felt like a test. I sat. We ate. Watched mindless TV. I laughed once, genuinely, And Ava looked at me like I'd surprised her. Tyler didn't speak much. Just stared at the screen, then at me, then back again. Around 10, Ava stood up. "We're gonna show you something," she said. Tyler didn't object. Just stood next to her. "Come on," she added. "It's important." I followed them, unsure why. Maybe it was the boredom. Maybe I wanted to feel seen. They led me to the guest room at the end of the hall. I hadn't been in there since I moved in. Ava opened the door and stepped aside. "Go on," she said. I paused. "What is this?" Tyler smiled, not warmly. "You'll see. They didn't drag me, not physically. But it felt like I didn't have a choice. Something about the way they looked at me, like they knew something I didn't. Like they'd rehearsed this moment." I stepped inside, and they closed the door behind me. The room was cold, barely lit by a flickering lamp in the corner. I stood there, heart thudding, not sure if this was a prank, a trap, or something worse. Tyler and Ava stood silently behind me for a second before Ava stepped in and sat on the edge of the bed like she'd done this 100 times. Tyler leaned against the wall, arms crossed. There was no smirk, no teasing. Just calm, collected stillness. "You're not happy," Ava said plainly. "We see it." I said nothing. The silence between us felt like it stretched for hours. "You think we don't notice the way she ignores you?" Tyler added. "You eat dinner alone. You sleep alone. You exist in this house like a ghost." Ava leaned back, propping herself up on her elbows. "She doesn't love you. Maybe she did for 5 minutes. But not anymore." I finally spoke. "This isn't your business." "But it is," Ava said. "Because we live here too. And we're tired of pretending this family is anything but a broken mess stitched together by your loneliness." I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was exposed. Ava stood and came close, close enough I could smell the faint scent of her shampoo. She looked at me like she wasn't talking to a stepfather, but to a man who'd been cornered by the truth. "You need something. We do too. This house is full of people lying to themselves." Tyler's voice cut in. "We're not asking. We're offering." I stepped back. "You don't know what you're doing." Ava tilted her head. "We do. We've known for a while. You're not the bad guy here. She stopped being your wife the minute she stopped seeing you." There was a second, just a second, when something cracked in me. I wanted to tell them to get out, to go to their rooms, to never speak of this again. But I didn't. I stood still. Ava took another step forward. She reached up and touched the collar of my shirt, just lightly. I should have pulled away. I didn't. I was frozen, confused, ashamed, but not resistant. Her hand dropped, and she stepped back like she'd proven a point. "I'm going to my room," she said. "You do what you want." Tyler followed her out without another word. The door clicked shut. I stood there in silence, ashamed of how hard I was breathing. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. The look she gave me. It wasn't childish or playful. It was knowing, calculated. And worst of all, I didn't stop it. I didn't push her away. The next day passed in a blur. Claire was still at work, another shift, another excuse to avoid home. I couldn't look at Ava during breakfast. She didn't seem to care. She poured coffee, leaned against the counter, and smiled when she caught me looking. "You think too much," she said softly. Then she walked off. Tyler passed me in the hallway later. "She meant it, you know." I didn't answer. I didn't want to hear it. By evening, Claire texted, "Staying at the hospital overnight. We're short-staffed." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That was the dynamic now, short, emotionless updates. That night it happened. I wasn't thinking straight. I'd had a drink, maybe 2. Ava knocked once, and came in like she owned the place. She didn't ask permission. She sat down beside me and said, "You're not going to stop this." I opened my mouth to say something, anything. But her hand was already on mine, fingers warm, steady, confident. It wasn't a question. It wasn't an invitation. It was inevitability. What happened next didn't feel real. It didn't feel good either. It felt like a surrender. A giving in to something I knew I'd regret, but couldn't resist anymore. I had been starved of attention, touch, validation. She knew that. She used it. After, she got dressed like it was routine. She didn't say much, just smiled at me and said, "Now we're part of the truth, too." The door clicked shut behind her, and I sat there, disgusted with myself. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel wanted. I felt like someone who had just been broken open and filled with poison. Tyler knocked an hour later. He didn't come in, just said through the door, "You'll see it differently in the morning." I didn't respond. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to undo everything. The morning didn't bring clarity, just more fog. Claire came home, exhausted, and gave me a half-hearted kiss on the cheek before crashing into bed. She didn't notice the look on my face. Didn't notice anything. Ava passed me in the hallway later. "Still thinking?" she asked. "You'll get used to it." I couldn't even look at her. I started avoiding both of them. Locked myself in the office. Took calls I didn't need to take. Left the house to run errands that weren't urgent. Every time I saw one of them, my chest tightened. The guilt sat like a stone in my stomach. I rehearsed speeches. "Claire, I made a mistake. Claire, something happened. Claire, I'm sorry." But I couldn't do it. Not yet. Then Tyler cornered me in the garage one afternoon. "You think you're the victim in this?" he asked. "You think she didn't choose this too?" "I didn't choose anything," I snapped. "You didn't stop it either," he said. He wasn't angry. He wasn't threatening. He was just stating facts. Cold, undeniable facts. And he was right. I didn't stop it. "You're already in," he said. "Now you need to stop pretending like you didn't want it." I couldn't breathe. Everything felt smaller. Tighter. I couldn't even trust my own memory of that night anymore. Had I allowed it? Had I encouraged it? Or was I just too weak to say no? Claire came home early that evening. She hugged me. That's all. Just a hug. For the first time in weeks. It crushed me. She smiled and said, "I miss how we used to be." I nearly collapsed under the weight of it. She was trying. After all this time, she was trying. And I'd already burned the foundation. I hugged her back, too tightly, too long. She looked confused, but didn't ask why. Later that night, I sat alone in the kitchen. Ava passed by, said nothing, but left her hand on my shoulder as she walked behind me. Just a brush of her fingers. That was all it took to bring it all back. I wanted to believe it was a one-time lapse. A mistake I could bury. But the way Ava and Tyler moved around the house told me otherwise. This wasn't over. Not for them. And I wasn't sure if I still had the strength to stop anything anymore. Days blurred. Nothing felt real anymore, but everything carried weight. Claire started acting different, softer, more present, even affectionate at times. Her sudden warmth didn't feel like love returning. It felt like guilt management, like she was covering tracks of her own. Maybe she sensed something, maybe not, but it was there, that subtle shift in her tone. She asked more questions, cooked once or twice, touched my arm when she passed me. All things she hadn't done in months. Too little, too late. I tried to play normal. I kissed her back, smiled when she joked, but inside I was splitting in two. My mind couldn't keep up with the act. I hated Ava for what we did. I hated myself more for letting it happen. I hated how she acted like nothing mattered. And I hated how I kept waiting for her to do it again. She didn't mention that night, not once. But her presence stayed heavy. She lingered in rooms longer than necessary. Her glances were deliberate. Tyler kept watching me, not like a threat, but like someone observing a test subject. I couldn't read what he wanted. Approval? Control? Or just to see how far I'd fall. Claire suggested a weekend trip. "Just the two of us," she said. "Let's reset." I agreed, without thinking. Maybe a reset would help. Maybe distance from the house, from them, would give me back some clarity. The night before we were supposed to leave, Ava came to my door again. No words. Just walked in and sat on the edge of the bed. Her eyes were calm. Her face unreadable. I asked her what she was doing, why she was pushing this, but she didn't answer. She reached out and touched my hand like she had a right to it. "You're not leaving her," she said quietly. "I know you're not. But don't pretend this didn't mean something." I pulled my hand away. It didn't. She laughed, low and cold. You keep saying that like it'll make it true. Then she left. No fight. No seduction. Just those words and her exit. Claire and I left the next morning. Drove to a cabin upstate. It was beautiful. Quiet. Isolated. She tried. She made coffee in the mornings, sat close to me during sunsets. She even cried once. I know I've been distant, she said. I don't know how to explain it. I've just been tired of pretending everything's fine. That hit me. Because I was pretending too, just differently. We didn't talk specifics. She didn't ask me if I still loved her. I didn't ask if there was someone else. Maybe we both knew there was too much damage beneath the surface to handle the truth. Maybe we were both cowards. The trip didn't fix anything. It delayed the collapse. We returned and things resumed. Her busy shifts, my silence, Ava's presence like a loaded weapon in the corner of every room. Then it changed again. Tyler cornered me in the garage a second time. She told me you're trying to ghost her, he said. That's not how this ends. I asked, though I didn't need clarification. You made a choice, he said. You don't get to act innocent now. You're part of this. Part of what? I asked, my voice shaking for the first time. He just stared at me. You really think you were the first? He said it without emotion, then walked away. That sentence stuck in my brain like a nail. You really think you were the first? It changed everything. It made me question whether this was a moment of chaos or a pattern I'd stepped into without realizing it. I started thinking back. Claire's sudden coldness, the exact timing of Ava's first shift in attitude, Tyler's obsession with watching me crumble. Was I a target? A replacement? A game? That night, Ava left a note under my office door. 5 words. You don't belong to her. I didn't reply. I didn't confront her. But I didn't tell Claire either. I carried the note in my wallet like a bomb I didn't know how to defuse. 2 days later, Claire found it. I came home to silence. She sat at the dining table, the note in front of her. Her face wasn't angry. It was tired. Betrayed. She didn't scream. Didn't ask questions. Just looked at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. I don't even know what to ask, she said. I knew something was off, but I never thought. I opened my mouth to deny it. She stopped me. Don't lie to me. Just tell me how far it went. I sat down. I wanted to confess everything, but my mouth was dry. It was a mistake, I said. I never meant. Who was it, she asked. I have to know. I hesitated. She stared at me. Ava, she said, voice cracking. I didn't answer. And that was the answer. She stood up and walked away. Locked herself in the bedroom. I sat there for hours. She didn't come out. Tyler came home, walked past me, and straight into her room. I heard him whispering, comforting. She was crying. Then I heard Ava's voice too. They were all in there. And I wasn't invited. The next morning, Claire was gone. Her closet half empty. No note. Just silence. Ava passed me in the hallway. Now you know how it feels. I looked at her, realizing too late that none of this had been spontaneous. Not the looks, the touches, the note. Nothing. It was constructed. Measured. Ava didn't fall into this. She planned it. And Tyler? He didn't stop it. He allowed it. Maybe even encouraged it. For what? Revenge? Power? Punishment? I started packing my things. The house didn't belong to me anymore. It never did. Ava watched from the couch. You think you were a victim? She asked. You had choices. You just didn't want to take responsibility. I stared at her. Why me? She stood, came closer, and looked me in the eye. Because you were easy. You were desperate. And because you thought no one would ever want you. That one landed. Because it was true. As I walked out of the house with the last of my bags, Tyler opened the door for me. Didn't say a word. Just watched. Ava leaned on the frame behind him, arms folded. They let me leave. But they made sure I'd never forget. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was punishment. Claire didn't call. No texts, no messages. I moved into a small rental across town. Empty walls and a cheap mattress to remind me daily of what I'd lost. the quiet nod at me. I kept checking my phone, hoping for something, rage, questions, even hate. But she gave me nothing. I tried calling once. Straight to voicemail. I left a message, not to apologize, not to explain, but just to hear my own voice say her name. I regretted it as soon as I hung up. I stayed away from the house, but I knew she hadn't kicked them out. Tyler posted a photo on social media 2 weeks later, him and Ava on the back porch, smiling, relaxed, unbothered. Claire was in the background, laughing at something. Like nothing had happened. Like I never existed. That hurt more than the betrayal. I ran into an old friend of hers at the store. She recognized me but hesitated before speaking. "Didn't expect to see you around here anymore," she said. I didn't ask what she meant, but I knew. Claire was talking to people, spinning her version. Maybe the truth. Maybe not. But I wasn't part of it. Work became the only structure I had left. I buried myself in it, stayed late, volunteered for things no one wanted to do. Anything to avoid the long hours alone. But even at work, I couldn't escape it. Every moment of silence invited memory. Ava's voice. Her hands. Tyler's stare. Claire's stillness when she found the note. I replayed it all like a movie I never auditioned for. I started seeing a therapist. I didn't tell her everything, not the real details, but enough to explain the wreckage. She said I had unresolved dependency. Said I lacked emotional boundaries. I nodded, paid her, and left knowing she had no idea what I'd done.
Or what had been done to me.
Months passed. Then Claire called. It was late. I was half asleep. Her name lit up the screen like a hallucination. I answered too quickly. "I need to ask you something," she said.
Her voice was calm.
Detached. "Were you in love with her?" "No," I said instantly. Then, "It wasn't love. It was a mistake." "I believed that for a while," she said. "But now I'm not sure if you're even capable of knowing the difference." I stayed quiet. She sighed. "I'm filing. You'll get the papers next week." I wanted to say something, anything, but I had no defense. She hung up. The papers came.
Clean.
Simple. No custody battles, no property disputes. We didn't have kids. We didn't own much together. Just years. Years of trying and failing. Years erased in 6 pages. I signed them. A few days later, I got a letter.
Handwritten.
From Ava. She didn't apologize. She didn't gloat. She just wrote, "I meant every word. You needed it. Maybe not me. But the truth. The weakness. The exposure. You needed to see who you are when no one's looking." It wasn't closure. It was a final wound. I didn't respond. Tyler never reached out. He didn't need to. He'd said everything with his silence. With his calm. With the way he stood there as I walked out of the house. No guilt in his eyes. I changed jobs. Moved again. Smaller city. New name on the lease. No photos on the wall. I stopped checking social media. Stopped explaining my story to anyone. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't deserve it. I just wanted to be invisible again. Sometimes I wondered if Claire was happy.
If she still lived with them.
If she forgave herself for everything she didn't say or didn't do. Sometimes I convinced myself she had been cheating first, and that made what I did less vile. But most of the time, I just sat with the truth. I broke something that couldn't be fixed. And I'd walked right into it. Years later, I saw Ava again. Random grocery store. Different city. She looked older, sharper, but the same cold fire in her eyes. She saw me, smiled slightly, and kept walking. No words. No confrontation. Just that smile. Like a reminder. She hadn't forgotten. Neither had I. That night, I went home and stared at the ceiling for hours. Not because I missed her. I didn't. But because seeing her proved that it all really happened. It wasn't a nightmare. It was real. And I was still living in the consequences. The worst part wasn't the loss. It wasn't even the guilt. It was the knowing that at any point I could have stopped it. That I had agency. That no one forced me. I stepped into the storm with open eyes. I met someone a year later. She was kind, cautious. We took things slow. I told her bits of the past, but never the full story. I couldn't. I wouldn't. Not because I feared judgment, but because I feared who I'd become if I said it all out loud. Some nights, I'd wake up from dreams where Claire was crying, where Tyler was laughing, where Ava whispered in my ear again. I'd wake up sweating, heart pounding, eyes darting around the room like someone might be there. But they never were. They were ghosts now. Ghosts I invited. Ghosts I fed. People say time heals everything. That's not true. Time numbs. Time buries. But the wound stays. You just learn how to walk around it. Sometimes I imagine an alternate version of my life, where I said no, where I set a boundary, where I noticed the traps before I stepped into them. That version of me has a wife who smiles without sadness in her eyes, a home that isn't built on lies, a future that isn't haunted. But that's not the version I chose. This one, the one filled with silence, distance, and echoes, is the one I earned. And no matter how far I move, how much I rebuild, some doors never truly close. They just stop creaking loud enough for others to hear.